Hello, I'm Harriet Popham and I'm a printmaker. I studied surface pattern design at Swansea College of Art, which I absolutely loved. I was specialising in interior textiles at the time, so I was doing silk screen printing and embroidery. I actually got into lino later on after I graduated, but the course and the approach to drawing and layering up designs is a really kind of integral part of how I work. My workspace is a little wooden hut on the edge of some fields in Glastonbury. So it overlooks and often has cows wandering past, which is really nice. It's a bit makeshift. It's evolved over time, but it's working really well for me as a print studio now. I've got a giant drying rack in there. I've got my printing press, nice light space to do my carving, and I really love it. It's a great place to work. Often my prints begin with a trip somewhere, and I take my sketchbook, do lots of drawing while I'm there, take loads of photos, kind of get the ideas off the ground. And then I get back, compile everything together and get it onto lino, start carving. Often planning the composition and selecting which elements can take as long as the carving. For instance, last January, I spent 2 weeks in Italy getting trains around to different cities and took a lot of inspiration from architectural details, mosaic floors, decorative friezes. That all fed into my work to create some really detailed, pattern-based prints. So I carved one of the Duomo in Florence, which was one of my first 2-block prints. So one layer in pink, one layer in green. Got really immersed in carving all of the minute details on the face of that incredible cathedral. So that trip was really integral and led to a lot of prints. So I'm really glad I did it. So when my projects don't begin with a trip to a place, it's sometimes because there's a new technique that I'd really like to learn and experiment with. So I'll think back to places that I visited or go back through sketchbooks and think, how can I rework that drawing to experiment in this way? Sometimes it's as simple as something someone said that's really made me smile and I just want to create a little something to capture that moment. And often if it's something that's moved me and meant something to me, I'm more connected to the work. And I think that kind of shines through. So work is made up of a few different components for me. There's the making of my prints and selling those through my online shop. I sell original linos, risograph prints, some giclée prints, and occasionally I'll take on a commission. One of my highlight commissions in the last few years has been designing a vessel for the V&A. This was an absolute dream commission for me. I got to layer together lots of different elements from the museum and celebrate the sort of architectural detailing, the staircases, jewellery, sculpture, carved a little scene of people having cake out in the garden, sort of wanted to capture the whole experience and paired it together. It's based on a vase from one of their collections, and I've put in a pop of orange cherry blossom to contrast the blue vessel, and that is now sold in their shop and online. The main material I work with is lino, and I work sometimes in the traditional grey Hessian back lino, sometimes in soft carve. Both have benefits for different ways of working. The soft carve is great because I can slice it up and work in a technique I love called puzzle piece printing, where you carve out the whole design, cut it up into different sections, ink those up individually, piece them all back together and print it as one. I love this approach because you can combine lots of colours, but they're all solid and really bright, so that works well. The furthest I've pushed this technique so far is with my Parks of London print, which is made up of 5 different vessels with pops of coral, botanical elements amongst them. It takes 2 of us to print it because it's so big, and we have to hand barren it to get the pressure because it's too large to fit in my press. So I have experimented in the past with digital illustration and lots of different ways of working, really, pen drawing, collage, but I have come full circle back to definitely preferring things the analog way. I think there's something actually more freeing about working within some limitations. So I love the fact that when you start carving lino, you're kind of committed, you're in. Once you've put a certain amount of time into it, you are going to want to see it through and finish it off. And there aren't as many endless possibilities of colour combinations with the click of a finger. So I like that about it a lot. There's still an element of digital in what I do because sometimes I'll turn a lino print into a risograph print, which you can see here. This is the original lino print. I've then colour separated it in Photoshop and had it printed in layers on the riso machine. So each colour is printed separately. They've got really fluorescent, lovely ink, so they're a lovely thing to work with. This is an example of a lino print that started as a reduction print, and then I've used it for riso. So I recently went to David Hockney's latest exhibition, Bigger and Closer, where all of his paintings were projected and the colours and textures were so inspiring that it's really made me want to push my approach to lino printing and experiment with some more painterly techniques. So getting creative with the way that I ink things up to bring in multi-layers of colour and texture within one block of lino. So that is something that I'm currently sampling and hoping to bring into my new work. I'm currently working on a project proposal to secure funding for a series of workshops which will be offered to over 100 unpaid carers, so people that are caring for ill family members or parents of children with special educational needs. The aim of the project is to give these individuals the chance to benefit from the well-being element of making with your hands and doing that in a group setting so that that group ends up being a support network as well. The project will end in a group exhibition, and in the third session of their printing workshops, I am going to invite them to contribute to a big collaborative piece. So 100 different prints from all of these carers will feature together on a large sheet. Over the next few months, I would love to start experimenting with printing lino onto fabric. Be nice to go back to my sort of textile-y roots where it all began and continue to run regular workshops as well as developing my prints and introducing a bit more colour and texture into them. My advice for anyone wanting to get into this line of work is to commit to exhibitions and events that are going to drive your momentum, keep you making, get new eyes on your work and make you celebrate what you do. Also, a really important thing is to make time for experimentation and playing. I actually ended up only getting into lino because I went along for a day with my friend who's a ceramicist. She wanted to have a go at making something new, so we just had some small blocks of lino and started carving. Now that's the majority of what I do, so I'm really glad I was open to that. I would encourage anyone that is thinking about trying something new or getting into a creative line of work to just go for it. Start small, start anywhere, but enjoy it.